Hi, everybody, and welcome to the very first Lafora talk show. Yay!
Good morning.
We have Paul and Jean joining us. We are so excited. Happy Nurses Week, everybody.
Happy
Today
Nurses
is
Week.
a very notable day as it is Florence Nightingale's birthday. So it is the perfect day to launch the first Lafora talk show. We have a lot of people that are starting to join us. We are live in Lafora. So if you are watching us now, please share, say hi, and let us know where you are calling in from. Let us know your name and where you are watching us from. We are so excited today to start off the very, very first Lafora talk show. So introductions. My name is Tanya Friedman. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Connetics USA, and we are a direct hire company. We help hospitals and nursing homes all over the US with the nursing shortage by bringing in internationally educated nurses. And with me, I have Paul and Jean. Can you hear me, Paul and Jean? You want to say hi?
Yes, I hear you.
Hi, everybody. Good morning from America.
Introduction. They are esteemed members of the Lafora admin team, and we are very grateful to have you join us today. Shout out to the Lafora admin team, to Paul, Jean, Louise, Nikki, everybody on the team for giving this opportunity. We're really grateful for this time, and hopefully we'll be able to, our aim is really just to help. So we have, let's see who's joining us. We have AJ, shout out from Abu Dhabi. Welcome, AJ. We have Christian who's watching. We have Doc who's watching from the Philippines. Denisa from the Philippines. Christelle Martin. Hi, Christelle. I know Christelle. May is watching. Teresa May is watching. Christelle Jane is watching. Anoldus, I hope I'm saying everybody's name correctly, is watching. Shout out from Abu Dhabi. Renz is watching. So we have a lot of people watching us today. And I feel I actually have like butterflies in my stomach, to be honest. I know, Jean, you said this morning you had palpitations, right? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I feel like I'm having palpitations right now.
We are just all so excited to be with you today. So we've got Renz watching, Cheryl, Oscar, Laser from the Philippines, Neil from the Philippines. Welcome, everybody. We're so happy to have you here with us today. So I'm going to start off the Lafora talk show with a story, and then we're going to get to our panel, and they're going to be sharing their experiences and their story and their advice with you. So many people joining us. Nina, hi Nina. I know Nina, Liza, Julie Ann, Chai. Please, everybody, share your hellos into the chat. So I'm going to start off with a story. The story is about a nurse that I met in the Philippines in 2007. Her name is Ronnie. She was petitioned and sponsored by a hospital in California. This was just before the retrogression and the Great Recession. She was unfortunately abandoned. She got her approved I-140, but was abandoned by that hospital. As many of you watching today had that same experience. And we kept in touch over all the years. And then we placed her at another hospital in the US, and she came through in 2018. So today she was actually nominated as the Nurse of the Year at the hospital where she works. She is in the process of buying a house. She is settled, and it's taken her now a few years to get to that point. But something that Ronnie said to me just rang true. And this is really the motivation and the purpose of the Lafora talk show. And this is what Ronnie said to me. She said, I for years and years and years, I waited to come to the US. I had the US, the American dream. This was everything that I was all in. I put my heart and soul into coming to America, but I never really thought about what it would be like when I got here. I didn't realize how many challenges and how many things I would have to go through, both good and bad, in order to come to the US. And that, everybody watching, is the purpose of the Lafora Talk Show. In today's times with the coronavirus, really difficult times that we're living through right now, coming to the US is going to be even more challenging than what Ronnie or Paul or Jean or many of you watching have experienced. So the purpose of the Lafora Talk Show is really just to help you. It's for other Laforans to pay it forward and share with you their stories so that you can learn from them and get their advice on what are going to be the challenges ahead, and start to think not just about the day that you arrive in the US, because that's, I know, what so many people are thinking of right now, but just as important is that the journey is going to continue, and we want you to think about what it's going to be like when you are here and in that first year, because as Paul and Jean are going to tell you, that first year is going to be a challenge. It's going to be a roller coaster, and it's not an easy process. So as I said, the purpose is knowledge is power, and we are really excited that Jean and Paul have agreed to be the first guests. We'll be doing this every month, and we'll have different guests that will come on every month, and we'll be sharing their stories and their advice. A few ground rules before we get to Paul and Jean's story. The first thing is that in terms of the guests that come on the show, we have asked them for some specific things. Number one is that we don't want them to share which hospital they're working at, which state they're living in, and also if they came with an agency, the name of the agency. This is, not the purpose of what we are talking about today, and we want to try and make sure that that we don't mention those particular details. The other thing also that has been asked of any guests that come on the Lafora Talk Show, that they be real and authentic. So, and what I mean by that is that, they tell you the good and the bad, but we also want this to be uplifting. We want this to be positive experience. So if there is something that is a challenge, they're also going to give you their solutions and what are the best practices that they have learned to share with you over the time that they've been in the US. The other ground rule of the Lafora Talk Show, before we get to Paul and Jean, who I know are patiently waiting for me to get to them, is that we ask you not to contact the guests to private message them. Please be respectful of their time. They're doing this for you just to serve, just to pay it forward to you, and just to help. If you have questions, you are welcome to put those questions into the chat, but please do not private message the guests, and let's be respectful of their time and of their privacy. Okay, so let's get started. Paul and Jean, are you ready?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so first question to both of you, and I'm not, who are we going to, maybe ladies first, right, Paul? And the first question is, if you want to maybe share with us just your story of getting to the US. Tell us a little bit about your history and your story of getting to this point.
Oh, okay. My life story.
Your life story, Jean.
My life story.
We're all ears. We can't wait to hear.
First of all, I would just want to tell you that I came from a very poor family. So my mother is a teacher, my father is a farmer, and we are very poor, like very, very poor. And there's 6 of us children. I am the eldest. So when I got married, my brother and sisters are very sad because they thought that I'm not gonna help them anymore because I'm the eldest. So, but my mother is very ambitious, and she wants that all of us will be professionals one day. So with everything that's going on with our life, our debt is like over the top of our head. we became professionals with the help of our family relatives. My aunt helped me with my studies before. So in the end, we're four nurses. Four of us became nurses. I, me, Rachel, Jeanette, James. One is an accounting, and one is a social worker. So we didn't let poverty be a hindrance of our success. So I wanted to become a nurse, and I became a nurse. So I served my country for 11 years, although in the hospital is just less than a year. So when I graduated in 1995 in Davao Doctors College, I worked for 2 years in the clinic in Davao Doctors, and then after that I worked as a nurse for 7 years. I work as a school nurse in our province. So life is so difficult also, and we still live paycheck by paycheck. So I decided to come to the US, to come here in the USA. So I went to Davao and applied as a clinical instructor, and I was hired. And I work only 3 times a week. And so there's still 4 days for me to study. So I signed up with a staffing agency, and everything was paid for. And the NCLEX review and exam, IELTS review and exam, the accommodation in going to Saipan where I took my NCLEX. So that's when the time that there is no testing center in the Philippines yet. So I went to Saipan. Hotel accommodation was all paid by the agency. And so they processed my visa screen after I passed all those tests, the NCLEX and IELTS. Then they told me that I have to have an experience in the hospital, because I never had an experience in the hospital from after my graduation to 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 the school as a school nurse, and then after that I never had an experience in the hospital. So I went back to our province in Davao Oriental and worked in the secondary hospital there in Mati. So the process for me from the time that they they process my papers was so very fast. It was just like 9 months for 9 months processing. And then after that, after I had my 6 months, I don't know. So after my I was a clinical instruction for 8 months in Davao Doctors. Then I went to the province to have my hospital experience for 6 months. And then after that, one day my processing officer told me that my visa is already approved. So I came here in the United States for right away, just for 9 months processing.
Wow. That was quick, Jean. A long story leading up to that point, and a lot of things happening, but it was relatively quick for you to actually get here.
Yes, it was a very, very fast, only 9 months process.
Wow. And I see we've got a lot of people that are commenting. Isola Joy is saying, Miss Jean, we have the same story. I'm the oldest. We are siblings, really the same story. I understand too. I was also the oldest, Jean. So I know the responsibility of being the oldest one in the family.
I think I lost
but
the
thank you for
audio.
sharing that history, because I think there's a lot of people are going to be able to identify with you, and it certainly was not a magic wand and a quick fix for you to get to this point, right?
Yes, right.
Paul, what about you?
Oh, well, ever since I was in college, I've always wanted to go to the United States. So after I finished my BSN in 2007, I didn't work right away. I prepared for my NCLEX, and then a few months later, I got my NCLEX license, and then that's when I started working. But as soon as I got my NCLEX license, I looked for an employer. They started a petition, but long story short, it took about from 2008 when I was petitioned. I got here in the States in 2017. So that was
Wow.
close to 9 years. very, very long because I finished nursing during the peak time in the Philippines, and that
Mhm.
was when the retrogression was really bad. I remember always checking the visibility in every month, and I would see that retrogression is 5 years behind or 9 years behind, and I was like, I don't think I'd get to the States by anytime soon. So I'd probably be 40 or 50 or 60 before I get there. So um,
And look
um,
how young you are, Paul.
yeah, thanks. It was a very challenging moment for me because I know that I've always wanted to go to the States, but I couldn't get through it. I couldn't go here because I didn't have the visa. But I waited until such time that my petition was current already. By that time, I was already 30 when my petition became current, and I am a national reviewer in the Philippines for 8 years. I've traveled around the Philippines doing review classes in big universities for 8 years. And so I felt like, oh, my life is already comfortable here. I didn't need to go anywhere. So when it was time for me to go, I had to stop and think about it if I really wanted to go. Because I mean, I was like, that was my dream 10, 12 years ago, but not right now because I'm comfortable right now. But then again, I look back at my motivation of why I took nursing, why my family wanted me to take nursing, and what was really my ultimate goal. And that's still for me to go to the United States. So I said, I'm going to drop everything that I have in the Philippines, all the comfort of life that I have. I've already established my name over there, but I was scared to come over here and start from the bottom again, but I'm glad I did. So it was a very long wait, but it was all worth it, and I never regretted coming over here.
Wow. Well, that's really such an inspiring story from both of you. Um, and I think that so many of the things that you're describing are what people watching are probably experiencing right now.
Mhm.
Just a roller coaster of emotions.
Right.
It's that the beginning time, like with Jean, where she came from a very poor family and had that drive and that desire to better herself and better her family and get to the US. And Paul, that mixed emotions of waiting for all those years, that frustration, watching that visa bulletin every month. So many people watching can relate to that just frustration and just just feeling kind of desperate, and then at the same time having mixed feelings when your case kind of came to fruition, because maybe you were quite comfortable where you were, and then the question was, should you actually move ahead or not? And I think that's the thing that a lot of people are experiencing right now as well, is kind of that mixed emotion. So I think really very relatable stories for both of you. And we see here so many people joining us. Jay Go, um, Alex, hi Alex, welcome. Melanie's watching, Mac is watching, Nicole is watching. So fast, 9 months. Nicole is jealous of Eugene, only 9 months. Arndolas, salute to you, Miss Jean. Pamela is saying hi. Prim, inspiring story, Miss Jean. Princess is watching. Mayan, Alex is watching. Fantastic talk show. Thanks, Alex. Bian, hi, Sir Paul. Charmine, hi, Paul. Karen is watching. Tinkermel is watching. One of the best reviewer in the Philippines, Paul. Yay, go Paul. Jason is watching. May is watching. Jean is watching. Please, if you're watching, tag your friends, share this Lafora talk show. We want to get the word out and make sure that we spread the advice that the guests are sharing with you, because it is really important to educate yourself, especially at this time with COVID-19, where the hospitals are stretched very thin. They are very overwhelmed right now, and it's really important to educate yourself about how it's going to be when you actually arrive in the US, what it's going to be like.
Right.
So Jean and Paul, if you want to maybe talk us a little bit through the first few days when you arrived in the US, what was it like?
Miss
Any
Jean?
funny stories to share with us? Any anecdotes in your first few days here? Because that's what we call the honeymoon period.
Right.
So, in my mind, when I was still in the Philippines, I was thinking, yeah, I will be in the USA. So I'm so excited. And I was thinking of a very nice view, like skyscraper buildings. But no, when I get here, I choose Michigan to be the place where I'm going to be deployed, because in the Philippines it is so hot, so I wanted to be in a cold state now. So when we arrive in Detroit, the the buildings are not so tall, so I was like, oh, is this America?
It didn't look like the background behind Paul right now, correct?
Oh yeah. We arrived in February 6 of 2006, and um there was our liaison, the staffing agency liaison fetch us from the airport. Me, my family, my husband, my kid, and Jackie Naranha. We came together here in the United States. So, and the first thing we did was, after we had lunch, we went to the Social Security Office administration to get our Social Security number. I think this time when you come here in the United States, you don't need to go to the Social Security Administration office anymore, because directly you can get it, I don't know, in the port air.
There are two ways of getting the Social Security. So you can get the Social Security by applying for it while you're in the process, so at the
Okay.
DSP-60 stage, or you would have to go to the Social Security office. So it depends how you have done it when you're in the immigration process.
Okay, so that's our process. When we arrive here, we go directly to the Social Security office to get our Social Security number, and then after that we went to our apartment, and which was prearranged by our liaison officer. But then the apartment doesn't have anything, so we have to go to the to the furniture store to get our bed, our mattress, everything. And the agency lent us $1,000 for the furniture, so we were deducted every month for that. Good thing that they lent us $1,000, because the money that I bought here when I came here in the United States is only $2,000, so I don't have enough money when I came here. So the next day we went shopping for our food, groceries and stuff. And the next few days we went to the hospital to have a medical exam and some of the papers that we need to sign. And also we opened a bank account. And I remember the funny thing that we did was when we wanted to buy a desktop, because when we arrive, it's so lonely. We miss our family in the Philippines, so we buy a desktop in, I think we went to Best Buy, and the money that I have were only like the desktop cost is $283, and I have like $1.
Wow.
So no, I mean my bills are all $1. So I bought a desktop that cost me $283 with all $1 bills.
Wow.
So
the store must have been, wow, what's going on here?
yeah, I was like,
that's funny. Oh, wow. And you, Paul? Tell us about your first few days. Tell us about the honeymoon.
Well, I came here to the United States and I stayed in San Francisco for a week. I informed my employer first and foremost, because I don't want to, they've been expecting me for like 9 years. So I told them, hey, can I go to San Francisco for a week before I go there? So I spent a week in San Francisco with my friend and toured the San Francisco area because I feel like after I start working, I won't be able to travel for a while, because of the adjustment phase. And then I flew to my city. It's a small city in the south, and it's predominantly Spanish people, 99% Spanish people. So that's one of the few hurdles that I had to overcome because I have to learn Spanish. And thank God, mi poquito hablar español ahorita. So I speak Spanish
Wow,
now
that's
very little.
impressive, Paul.
So after 3 years, yes. So, but there's so many things that were really hard at first. You cannot go around without. This is not like New York that you see in the movies, where there's subways and cabs everywhere. I'm in a city where there's no public transportation, and if you do try to use the public transportation, you're gonna have to wait for an hour or two to get to the bus, and then you're gonna have to walk miles under 90, 110 degrees Fahrenheit during summer. So I didn't have a car. My agency arranged for a car service for me for a month until I could get a car. And that's one of the few things that I had to do. As soon as I got here, Lefora was such a big resource. That time we were only 4,000 people in Lefora. That was
Wow.
2007, and there were people mentioning about different credit unions. So I applied in all those credit unions within 2 weeks that I was here in the States, and I was able to get a car in 3 weeks without down payment, and I had a really good deal with the APR. Another problem that I had was I didn't have a bank account, I didn't have social security. um, so the bank account, I went to Bank of America because they're only requiring one ID. So that was my passport. The other banks would require two American IDs. At that time, I didn't have American ID except the visa from the U.S. Embassy. So that was one thing. And another thing is the social security. I had to wait for it for 2 weeks. But what I did was I went to social security the next day that I was in my city, and I asked them if I could have the number, because the number is all I need, not the card, to be able to apply to my job, because my employer will have to do background checks, get your bank information for your direct deposits. We do not pay cash here when you work in the hospitals, not like in the Philippines. You are paid cash, it goes to your bank. You have to have your bank account and your check. And then of course uh, the social security is needed for the employer background check. So I had to take care of that. And then, of course, I had to wait for a week before the background check is finished so I could start working. The thing here is you don't get paid not until the second or third week. So if you're not working for a while and you keep traveling, keep doing these things, and like what Ma'am Jean said, you had to buy a lot of things. You're kind of losing money, so you want to start working as soon as you can. What I did is I brought I think I had $6,000 when I started, and then I brought my Philippine credit card just in case. So it actually helped me in the first few months, especially with the groceries and stuff like that. But if you're like me and you're single, you're really gonna learn to be very independent, in terms of like setting up your life and establishing your life, your apartment, and buying groceries. As soon as I got my car in 3 weeks, I started driving around, just to get to know my city very well, like where the banks are, where are the schools, where are the groceries, very important for me, where are the parks, because those are the stuff that helped me in the first few months. And driving is another story. All right, I'm in a state with the fastest speed limit, and we could have a 30 mile per hour speed limit on our street, but drivers are just driving 60, 70 miles per hour on a small street. So it's crazy. It's not like the Philippines. I drove in Manila, and it was always slow moving over there. Um, here it's like 100 kilometers per hour. That's how they drive over here, and it's another story. I guess we'll talk about it in another video. But yeah,
We got a
it's
lot
kind of
to
scary
talk
at first.
about.
Right.
Yeah, there's so much to say and so much to share, but I think both of you have shared so many wonderful pieces of advice already.
Right.
The one thing that both of you have spoken about is coming here with enough money.
Right.
I can really so relate because I came here 20 years ago. I had two little children. I came from South Africa. My husband was carjacked
Oh.
in South Africa with a gun to his head. There was a lot of crime. So that was the reason why we came to America. But when we came here, we had very little money, and with the exchange rate, it made it even worse. So I can identify that feeling of thinking that you're going to start working right away and you're going to be earning right away, and you don't realize when you come to the US that that doesn't happen, because you've got to go
Right.
through social security, you've got to go through background checks, you might have to have you will have to have a medical exam at the hospital. So there's a lot of steps and a lot of things that you need to go through before you start earning a paycheck. Do you have any advice, Paul or Jean, about how much, and this is, please, just to be clear to everybody, this is just, Paul and Jean's advice. So,
Right.
please don't take that as like that's, gospel, like exactly what it is. So any idea of what you would suggest as kind of like a minimum? Because obviously the more somebody can save and bring with them, the better. But do you have any advice or suggestions on that?
Right now, mm, because you have to buy a car, and if you don't have a good credit score here, you have to make a down payment. So
Right.
I guess if you have a relative here that would consign you to get that car, that would be very good. Um, Maybe 500 or 1,000 down payment for the car alone. That's, I think, the least that they could give you. And so probably $5,000 would be enough, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Because in my time, I only have 2,000. I survived with the 2,000, but it's
Mm-hmm.
different now. It's year 2020, and everything is
Right.
kind of
Yeah,
Inflation.
expensive.
yeah.
Right.
It was 14 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
So
for
things
me.
have gotten more expensive. Paul, what
Right.
are your thoughts on that?
I guess it would really depend on the family size. With me, I'm single, so I thought that 5 or 6,000 was enough. Also one good thing about what happened to me was I can consider myself very lucky, because I was able to start um on the job within 2 weeks here in the United States. The first week being in San Francisco touring, and the second week waiting for the background check. But I've heard of nurses having to wait for a month or two, because like what Miss Tanya said, you don't just come here and start work right away. There's a lot of stuff to do. Wait for your social security, wait for your background check, wait for your licensure verification. So the employers will do a lot. In fact, in my new job, I had to wait 3 weeks for them to clear me. Um, so I was just lucky to be able to start within 2 weeks. So that means that after the first month here in the United States, I already got my first paycheck. But I can imagine for nurses who would have to wait 1 or 2 months to do some trainings, or, if they have deficiencies, the employers would not allow them to work right away. That would really pose a problem. So I would suggest you budget within the first 3 months as a safety net. For me, I was also lucky because my first house that I lived in, I rented a room on a Filipino family. If you're single, you can do that. It's called house hacking. It's easier because you don't have to buy a lot of furnitures right away, and you don't have to buy a lot of stuff right away. And I had a huge room, and it was super cheap. I was able to save a lot of money because of that. And I mean, they were cooking Filipino food. So, I mean, I would take that in a heartbeat because I don't know how to cook. but but that's it. It depends on your family size. If you're single, I guess 2 to 5,000 would be enough for the first 1 or 2 months. But if you're a bigger family size, you have kids, that would be a different story. So account for furniture that you had to buy, equipment that you have to buy, food, groceries, and everything that you need to establish your life here. So there are good resources online for cost of living comparison. And I forgot the website, but if I find it, I'll post in Lafora. But they itemize like the grocery expenses and the gas expenses for each city in the United States. There's a lot of stuff in Google that you can find. That might help you decide on how much you can bring in the first few months that you're here in the United States. And if you have credit cards in the Philippines, that can be a safety net as well. That can help you to, fill in the gaps if you don't have a lot of cash. Here in the States, most of the time it's cashless. So credit cards, you can use them, debit cards. Um, that would really help you.
And
Okay.
probably if you're going to California, you might probably bring a bigger amount of money, because
Oh,
if
yes.
you go, yeah, if you go in California and you don't have a license in California yet, because you still have to file for that, right? Maybe 6 to 6 months the least to get the license in California. So you might probably bring $10,000.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Depends on
I
the
think,
state as well and what
yeah,
city.
sorry, Paul. I think that's a good point that both of you are raising, and that is often before you come to the US, you don't realize that every state and almost every city has got a different cost of
Yeah,
living.
exactly.
And different taxes as well. Some states have federal and state tax, and some only have federal tax. So it's if you think of the cost of living, it's not like comparing apples and apples. It's
Right.
really comparing apples and pears. So I think that's a really important point that you both brought up.
Mhm.
And one other thing that I wanted to speak about is, Jean, you spoke about when you came here, you had a friend. Paul, you were talking about the Lafora community, which has grown so unbelievably in the last, in the last few years. But I think one thing that's really important that's coming through to me from both of you is that sense of helping each other and that sense of community. Paul, you spoke
Mhm.
about, staying with the Filipino family. Can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about that and how that can help? Because that is something certainly from myself as an immigrant I found coming from South Africa, is the other South Africans that I knew here were really we were able to form a great buddy system, and
Right.
that was enormously helpful. Can you talk a little bit about your experiences with that?
Uh, with my friend, I came here with a friend who I met in the Philippines, but we live in a separate apartment because I have a family and she's single, so she has her own apartment. But then when we came here, my husband has an aunt who live in Florida, and she helped us to be our co-signer when we bought the car. And also, I have a friend who helped me. She came to our apartment. We went grocery shopping. Probably she spent like 200, 300 pesos. Uh, that was a free grocery for us.
Right.
So yeah, we were so fortunate to have those friends who helped us during that time.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, same with me. Community is important, especially if you're single. It was when I moved here to the States, it was my first time migrating to somewhere to work. I travel a lot. When I was back in the Philippines, I travel a lot. Every now and then I would be out of the country for travels, but that is only temporary. When I got here, in the first month, I realized how homesickness can be so bad. It can affect your mental health if you're really not strong. And community is very important. I was lucky because where I live, there's a huge Filipino community close to me. Like, I mean, if I go outside my house, there's 8 houses around that are owned by Filipinos. And every now and then we would have lunch and dinner together, and that helped me in the first 3 months. And also with my job, the first thing that I did when I got deployed in the emergency department is look for Filipinos, because I can relate to them and they can relate to me. And that really helped me, get through things. They know I was new, so there were so many things that, like when you say culture shock is real. I mean, I grew up in Manila and I've been exposed to so many stuff, but when I got here, there's so many things that I call American ways that I was never prepared for. But the community helped me, and that's really important. I got here by myself. My agency is such a small agency, and we don't get deployed like other agencies where you go together, 10 of you or 12 of you in the same hospital. No, I was by myself, and it took months before the next person got here. So when I was finally able to adjust, I have this mantra of pay it forward. So those nurses that got here after me, when they got here, I lent them my car. I drove them around to groceries. Every week I would do that for them. I'm not expecting for anything, but it's just me paying it forward because I know how hard it is to be away from your family and not have a community. So that's what I did to my friends. And that's what I'm doing in Lafora too. It's like my community service. It's like my me paying it forward to everybody. What I learned, I want to share it to everybody. So that's what I do.
Yeah, and I love that, Paul, because that's really what the Lafora Talk Show is. It's paying it
Right.
forward. It's really just sharing your experiences to help those that are coming next, and we hope that that will be passed on to the next group of nurses that will be coming to the US. But I think that you're so right, both of you. Culture shock is a real thing.
It is.
Before I came to live in America, my sister lived in Los Angeles, and I used to say to her, I don't understand what is so different. You get up in the morning, you eat your breakfast, you go to work, you run your errands, you see to your family, you come home, you cook dinner, and you go to dinner. Like, what could be so different about
Right.
coming to America that would say that you would have culture shock? Oh my gosh. I
Culture shock.
learned, I certainly learned the hard way that it's a real thing, and it's very common in the few months and even up to about a year after
Right.
you've arrived in the US. It's very common, and I want everybody to hear this. You've heard it from Paul, you've heard it from Jean. It's very common to feel homesick and to
Mhm.
feel depressed, sad. And I'm not saying everybody's going to feel that way, but it's not uncommon for you to experience
Right.
culture
Mhm.
shock. And I think that's where community is just so important, so important, and just helping each other and paying it forward. Wow, we have so many people watching us today. I was so engrossed in your stories, I forgot to look at the chat. We have Jean who's watching from Saudi. We've got Nikki watching. Happy Nurses Day. We've got Jill watching from the UAE. Jerome saying hi. Jeb, awesome stories. Catherine watching from the Philippines. Anthony, Romel, Jane, Monith, Melvin, Nicole, Antoinette, Daniel, Irene. The list goes on and on and on. So amazing that all of you are watching, and thank you. So we've got Opia, I think I pronounced that right. Thank you for the inspiring talk show. And that's really our intention as well, is for this to be uplifting and helpful, even though we're sharing the stories and some of the challenges, for you to be able to get the advice of the guests, so that you can, because as we say, knowledge is power. And Eric is saying, Paul, you were one of my mentors, and Jean assisted me with my NCLEX processing. That's why I said Paul and Jean, need no introduction. Very famous, amazing people helping and paying it forward. Wow, the list goes on and on. We have so many people joining us. Wonderful. Sid is, I know Sid, everybody's watching us. That's just so wonderful to see. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And please feel free to go ahead and post your questions into the chat. We are at 45 minutes. I can't believe it. We have so many more questions,
Enjoy this so
and we will be doing this talk show once a month. Paul and Jean will be joining us as well, and we will have other guests on as well. If you want to be a guest on the Lafora Talk Show, please let us know, and we would love you to join us and share your stories. Paul and Jean, any other advice for the Laforans? Any other words of wisdom to share at this time?
Miss Jean.
Uh, words of wisdom. So if you dream of coming here to America, don't let it just be a dream. So strive so hard that you will make that dream into a reality. Pass your NCLEX, pass your IELTS. That's your step in coming here to America. So yeah, and just live a simple life. When you come here, don't live luxuriously. Just live simply. Yeah. So in that way, you can also help. If you have the drive to help your family back home, then you still have money to help them.
Right.
Those are pearls of wisdom, Jean.
Right.
Really, really good advice. I've seen so many nurses over the years come to the US. They've dreamed, they've waited, they've worked hard to get here. And then they come here and they think this is going to be the land of milk and honey, which it is the greatest country and the most wonderful opportunity. But they put enormous pressure on themselves by going out and spending too much and
Right.
incurring too many expenses. So I think that is
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful advice, Jean. And I agree 100%. Get your NCLEX, get your IELTS. Now is the time. Now is the time. Paul, any words of wisdom, final words for the Laforans?
Yeah. So the good thing of what happened with me is while it took time for me to get here, when I got here, I was already financially mature. I was already professionally mature. I already know what I wanted and I can trust myself with finances. The American dream can either make or break you. People will always look at the positive things, but the bad side is America can offer you with so many things that you can easily rack yourself up with debts, like what Miss Jean is saying. You know, you can easily apply for credit cards. In my first year here, I already have credit cards that have credit limits that I always tell my mom in the Philippines, I can buy a house in the Philippines right now with just my credit card. And that can easily destroy you, you know? But I came here when I was 30 years old and I was already mature in terms of my finances and budgeting. So I didn't incur debts. And the good thing about that is um, while you are waiting, um, develop yourself in such a way that when you get here to the States, you're already prepared to the life here, you know, that your goal is for your success and not for it to destroy you. And don't be scared of waiting. A lot of people will get tired waiting after 1 or 2 years, and I'm not saying you have to go through what I had to do, like wait for 9 years to get here. I'm not saying that. In fact, I would want you to be here as fast as you can because waiting for 9 years is not good at all, right? But always look at the brighter side of things. And like what I always wanted to say, my favorite quote is all great things take time. So, you want to be great at something, well, it takes time to do that. So keep waiting, keep pushing on, make sure that all your papers are ready, so by the time you are current, everything will flow smoothly. And if things turn the way that if it turns the other way where you don't want it, always look at the brighter side of things, like the positive side of things. Maybe it's happening because it is not meant for you and something bigger is meant for you. But yeah, American dream can be very elusive and tough. There is a reason why it's hard to get here to the States. If you really are in for this, you gotta be strong and be courageous and keep dreaming and don't let that dream fade away, you know. And community is important. Lefora contains tons of information that can help you with your first few days of life here in the United States. We've discussed a lot about banking, credit unions, credit cards, cars, um, all sorts of things. You know, all you got to do is search Lifora, and there's tons of information here. And we're always here for you. Maybe we're not replying a lot. You know, being an admin of a group with 100,000 members is crazy. I can tell you right now, I work 3 days a week and I'm in school, and I get 100 messages or more in a day. So I'm so sorry if I'm not replying to everybody, or Miss Jean as well. I'm sure it's also tough on her side. But if we don't reply in your messages, post it in Lafora. We'll probably see it, and a lot of people could also probably help you. So that's it. Thank you so much for listening to our talk show, and we love to see you here today.
Wow, that was so inspiring, Paul. Both of you, just such words of wisdom. And I want to thank you again for your time. There is a lot to talk about, and we will be continuing to do the Lafora Talk Show. We will be doing it once a month. Paul and Jean will be back to share so much more about the experiences, about, as Paul said, the banking, cars, credit history, taxes, what it's like clinically as a nurse to work in the US. So there is a lot more to unpack and a lot more to discuss. And we are just so grateful for you, both of you, paying it forward to so many. I hope that this has been helpful for everybody watching. And please make sure to tune in. We will be sending out reminders to the next Lafora Talk Show. We will have other guests. If you would like to be a guest on the Lafora Talk Show, let us know. Please, we welcome everybody to come on and share their experiences. And also, as I said in the beginning, just remember the ground rules. The Lafora Talk Show is meant to be inspiring and informative, but please do not private message the guests because we want to be respectful of their time and pay it forward. So last of all, please share this talk show, tag your friends. We want to get the word out. Knowledge is power. And thank you everybody for tuning in, and happy Nurses Week.
Happy Nurses
Stay
Week.
safe, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.